Thought is compound interest. One negative thought repeated daily becomes financial struggle. One positive philosophy applied daily becomes abundance. Every day your mindset is either planting a vineyard or digging a ditch. Choose wisely. Some people live just to survive. The wealthy live to contribute, to multiply, to expand what they've been given. Survival is reactive. Significance is proactive. When your mindset shifts from how do I get by to how do I build something greater than myself, that's the turning point. That's the moment you stop surviving and start living wealthy. You don't have to be born into money, but you do have to be born again in your mind. And if you want to be wealthy, you must think the way wealth thinks. If not, you'll earn like the broke, spend like the broke, and stay like the broke. But if we can fix the thinking, the money will follow like a shadow at noon. One of the most damaging beliefs a person can carry is the idea that money is evil. You've probably heard it whispered in conversations or even shouted from pulpits, money is the root of all evil. But that's not quite right, is it? The actual truth is this: the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. That's a critical difference. You see, money is not evil, it's not holy either. Money is neutral, it's a tool, a reflection. It only reveals more of who you already are. If you're generous and kind, money will magnify that generosity. If you're selfish or reckless, money just gives you a bigger stage to act it out. The poor mindset sees money as the villain. The wealthy mindset sees money as a servant, a tool to build, to grow, to bless others, not to worship, not to chase endlessly, but to command and manage with wisdom. Let me tell you something that changed my life early on. I realized that being broke didn't help anyone. I couldn't help the poor by being one of them. I couldn't support a cause if I was barely getting by. I couldn't teach financial discipline if my own wallet was in chaos. So I decided to rewrite the story I believed about money. I started to see it for what it really is: an amplifier, a means, a multiplier. Not the master, not the enemy, just a tool. If you grew up hearing that wealth was wicked or that rich people were greedy, it's time to challenge those assumptions. Sure, some people abuse money just like they abuse power, time, or words, but that's not a money problem. That's a character problem. You fix that by developing yourself, not by pushing money away. Money in the hands of a wise person can build schools, feed families, create jobs, and transform communities. That's not evil, that's impact. But you can't make that impact if you're constantly afraid of wealth or ashamed to pursue it. You have to believe that building wealth is a noble thing if your motives are pure and your stewardship is strong. So if you want to grow richer, first grow wiser. Shift the way you see money. Make peace with it. Respect it. And then put it to work, not for your ego, but for your purpose. Because when money becomes your servant, wealth becomes your legacy. Most people stay broke not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack financial literacy. They work hard, they put in the hours, and they mean well, but when it comes to understanding how money truly works, they're lost. And if you don't understand how something works, it can work against you. Think about this. If you were dropped into a chess tournament without knowing the rules, no matter how smart or hardworking you are, you're going to lose. Why? Because the other players know the game. They know when to attack, when to defend, how to sacrifice a pawn for a queen. Now apply that same thinking to money. The wealthy understand the rules of the financial game, and the poor often don't even realize they're in a game. The lack of financial literacy is not a small problem. It's one of the biggest reasons people stay trapped. They don't understand interest, so they rack up credit card debt. They don't understand inflation, so they keep their money under a mattress. They don't understand compounding, so they miss decades of growth. And worst of all, they don't understand the difference between an asset and a liability, so they spend their lives buying things that look like wealth but secretly drain it. So, what's the fix? Study money like it's a science. Make it your personal responsibility to understand how the financial world works. Read books. Take a basic finance course online. Learn about taxes. Learn how interest either works for you or against you. Understand that compounding is not just a theory, it's the engine of wealth. Know the difference between earned income, portfolio income, and passive income. Learn how to protect your money from inflation and how to grow it through sound investments. I'll never forget the day I truly understood compound interest. It was like a light bulb went off. I realized that every dollar I saved and invested wasn't just a dollar, it was a worker that could bring me more dollars, and those dollars would bring their own workers. Money, when treated right, works harder than you ever can. But if you don't know that, you'll keep trading hours for dollars for the rest of your life. And here's the strategy. Start small, choose one financial concept a week and master it. Maybe this week you learn about how mutual funds work. Next week, you study tax brackets. Week after that, learn how to read a financial statement. Layer by layer, build your literacy. Because what you understand, you begin to control, and what you control, you can multiply. Ignorance is expensive, but knowledge, when consistently applied, pays dividends for life. The most dangerous habits that keeps people poor is emotional spending. It sneaks up quietly, often disguised as reward or relief. You've had a tough day and suddenly that new gadget or those shoes feel like they've earned a place in your life. Not because you need them, but because you feel something, boredom, stress, even celebration, and your wallet becomes the outlet. But if you let emotions drive financial decisions, don't be surprised when your bank account reflects chaos instead of strategy. We must learn to pause. Discipline teaches you that just because you can buy something doesn't mean you should. So here's a powerful principle. Before you buy anything that costs more than a certain amount, $50, $100, $500, whatever the threshold wait 24 hours, don't touch your wallet. Don't click order now. Just wait. Because when emotion calms down, wisdom rises up. What felt urgent today often feels unnecessary tomorrow. That 24-hour rule isn't just about money, it's about mastery. It's about proving to yourself that you are in control, not your impulses. That you don't need to chase every sale, every dopamine hit, every limited time offer. It trains your mind to respond with intention rather than react with emotion. And let me tell you something, wealth is built on intention. Poverty is often built on reaction. There was a time I made purchases just to feel better. I thought, well, I worked hard this week, I deserve this. But what I really deserved was financial peace, and that didn't come in a shopping bag. It came when I started using the pause. I began asking questions like, will this make me money or cost me? Will this help me become the person I'm working to be or distract me from it? You start to see that not all spending is equal, not all feelings deserve a transaction. The goal is not to stop spending, it's to spend wisely, aligned with your vision, not your mood. You want to build a habit where your money reflects your values, not your temporary state of mind. Because once you learn to master emotion, you start making money decisions that serve your future, not sabotage it. And the day you stop letting your feelings run your finances is the day you start walking the path toward wealth. One of the greatest tragedies I've seen is people waking up every day with no vision for where they're headed. They might get dressed, punch the clock, run errands, and repeat the same cycle tomorrow, but deep down they're wandering. And you know, life doesn't reward the wanderer. Life rewards the person who walks with direction. See, if you don't design your life, chances are someone else will hand you theirs, and they're not designing it with your dreams in mind. You need a clear vision, not someday, not when you feel ready. Today, a written vision for your financial future. Where you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How much do you want to earn? Be specific. Don't say, more, everyone wants more. Say $150,000 a year. Say $300,000 saved. Say $2,000 a month going into investments. And say it with purpose. Because what you can define, you can pursue, and what you pursue with consistency, you often receive. When I started, I had nothing. I was behind on my promises and broke on my goals. But I sat down with a yellow legal pad and started writing out a new life, a vision. I asked myself, What would I need to become to earn that kind of money? Who would I need to meet? What kind of discipline would that require? That exercise shifted something in me. Because once I could see it, I could stretch toward it. A clear financial vision does something powerful. It makes your present choices easier. Should you buy that thing you don't need? Well, ask yourself, does it get me closer to my 5-year vision? If it doesn't, now it's not just a decision, it's a distraction. A clear vision brings clarity to your spending, purpose to your saving, and passion to your earning. Without one, your energy is scattered. With one, your energy becomes focused and powerful. It's not about writing some wish on a napkin. It's about building a target so specific that you can measure your progress every month. It's the difference between shooting an arrow into the sky or aiming straight at the bull's eye. Most people never hit a target because they never set one. But those who do, they begin the slow but steady journey from survival to significance. Start today. Put your vision on paper before your future slips through your fingers. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or intelligence. They fail because they seek too much comfort. They chase ease, not growth. They choose familiar misery over unfamiliar opportunity. And here's the truth, comfort is the enemy of progress. Growth and comfort don't ride the same horse. If you're always choosing what feels good in the moment, you're building a life that won't feel good in the long run. We were not designed to remain the same. Nature itself teaches us this. A tree is either growing or it's dying. It doesn't get to pause. And neither do we. The moment you stop challenging yourself, you begin drifting not forward, but backward. The couch feels better than the gym. Scrolling feels easier than studying. Excuses feel safer than execution. But none of those things pay you back. None of those habits deposit anything into your future. I remember when I first started building my own business, the discomfort was constant. Making the call I didn't feel ready to make. Speaking in front of an audience when my hands were shaking. Reading books filled with ideas that stretched my thinking so much it hurt. But every breakthrough I've had a very one was on the other side of something uncomfortable. And I've learned this. If you want to change your income, change what you're willing to do. So here's a strategy. Every single day, do one thing that stretches you. Just one. It might be sending that email you've been avoiding, making the pitch, finishing the chapter, saying no when it's easier to say yes. Challenge doesn't need to be massive, it just needs to be consistent. That's how muscles grow. And mindset is no different. Daily tension creates long-term transformation. You've got to develop the mindset that says, I refuse to stay stuck. Make stagnation so uncomfortable, so intolerable, that growth becomes your only option. And once you get a taste of growth, real progress, you'll find it far more satisfying than comfort ever was. Because comfort is a slow death, but challenge is the birthplace of wealth, confidence, and freedom. Let me share something most people overlook until it's too late. The value of an emergency fund. You see, life has a way of testing our plans when we least expect it. The car breaks down, the company restructures, the medical bills arrive uninvited, and if you're unprepared, a small financial surprise becomes a major crisis. The difference between a setback and a disaster often comes down to one thing: whether or not you had a cushion in an emergency fund. Now, most people don't think about this until they're already in trouble. That's the poor mindset at work, it says. I'll deal with it when it happens. But the wealthy think differently. They say, let me prepare before the storm comes. Because storms will come. The question isn't if, it's when. And the best time to prepare for winter is in the spring. You don't build a roof during a rainstorm. You build it when the sun is still shining. The strategy is simple, but requires discipline. Set a goal. Save 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses. Not your luxury lifestyle, your basic needs. Rent, food, utilities, transportation. This fund is not for vacations, gadgets, or impulse buys. It's your personal financial firewall, your peace of mind in a volatile world. Start small, but start now. Maybe it's $10 a day. Maybe it's $100 a week. Whatever it is, automate it. Make it invisible. If you see it sitting in your checking account, you'll spend it. But if you route it to a separate savings account, the moment you get paid, you'll never miss it, and over time it builds. I've seen people go from paycheck to paycheck to financial peace in less than a year just by applying this one principle. There was a young man I once mentored. He had no savings and lived on every dime he earned. I challenged him to set aside just 10% of every paycheck into an emergency fund, no excuses. A year later, his company downsized. But unlike his colleagues, he didn't panic. He had 6 months' worth of expenses saved, which gave him time to breathe, think, and find a better opportunity. That's the power of being prepared. You don't get wealthy by avoiding storms. You build wealth by preparing for them in advance. One of the biggest reasons people stay broke is that they don't understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Now, on the surface, those might sound like fancy financial terms best left to accountants. But let me tell you, they're the dividing line between people who build wealth and people who spend a lifetime chasing it. Here's the simple truth. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out. That's it. That's the golden filter. If you're ever confused about whether something is good for your finances, just ask, does this feed me or does it bleed me? You see, the poor mindset buys liabilities and calls them assets. A fancy car on a loan, that's a liability, no matter how good it looks in the driveway. It costs you monthly payments, insurance, maintenance, a big television, brand name clothes, the newest phone. All those things lose value the minute you buy them, and none of them pay you back. Now, the wealthy, they think differently. They take the same dollar and point it towards something that grows. They buy assets. A rental property that pays rent every month, asset. A skill that increases your income potential, asset. A piece of stock that earns dividends, asset. Even your own business, if structured right, becomes one of the best assets you can own. It doesn't just sit there. It works. It moves. It produces. I remember in my early years, I made the mistake of thinking the trappings of success were the proof of success. I bought the nice clothes, the upgraded car, the shiny watch, but the money disappeared just as fast as it came. Then I got around some wealthy mentors, and they taught me something that changed my life. Rich people buy luxuries last, poor people buy them first. In other words, don't buy it until your assets pay for it. Start small. Take a look at your spending this month. Ask yourself, what am I buying that's feeding me and what's bleeding me dry? It's not about guilt. It's about awareness. You can't fix what you don't understand. Once you learn the difference, you begin to look at money not as something to spend, but as something to plant. And money, when planted in the right soil, grows. It compounds, it multiplies, it buys back your time, it funds your freedom. But only when you feed your financial future and stop draining it on things that glitter but don't grow. Master that distinction, and you change the direction of your life. One of the most dangerous habits that keeps people broke isn't lack of opportunity or even lack of money. It's the habit of blame. When something goes wrong, they look outward. They point to the government, the economy, their boss, their background, their parents. Now, here's the trap with blame. It feels good in the short term because it excuses you from doing anything different, but it will cost you your future. You may win the argument, but you lose the life. The truth is, blaming the system might get you sympathy, but it won't get you success. I've met people who blame the same economy that others used to build fortunes. I've seen two people start in the same city, in the same job, in the same year. One says, I can't get ahead in this system. The other says, I'll find a way. Years later, one is still stuck, and the other is free. Same system, different mindset. You see, when you blame something outside yourself, you also hand away your power. You're saying, I can't change because they won't change. But when you take responsibility even for things that weren't completely your fault, you reclaim your power, because if it's your fault, it's also your opportunity to fix it. Ownership creates options. I remember a time in my early career when my business was failing. Sales were down, morale was low, and I was frustrated. It was tempting to blame the market, to blame the competition, to blame the lack of resources. But I caught myself. I asked, what part of this did I create? What did I neglect, ignore, or delay? And the answer wasn't easy to swallow, but it was freeing. I realized I hadn't trained my team. I hadn't made the calls. I hadn't innovated. I had grown complacent. The moment I took ownership, solutions began to appear. My thinking shifted from complaints to creativity. So here's the strategy. From this day forward, take 100% responsibility for your financial life. Not 80%, not 99%, all of it. Even when the circumstances are unfair, ask, what can I control? What can I change? What can I build from this? You'll be surprised how resourceful you become when you stop waiting for someone else to fix it. Responsibility isn't a burden, it's a superpower. It doesn't mean you're to blame for everything. It means you have the power to respond to, think better, act smarter, and change the outcome. That's the mindset that builds wealth. Belief is the engine that drives action. Without belief, people won't begin. They'll sit on the sidelines of life watching others win the game and convincing themselves they were never meant to play. One of the most paralyzing thoughts I've heard, and I've heard it many times, is, that's great for them, but I could never do that. And just like that, the mind closes the door on every possibility. You see, most people don't fail because of lack of opportunity. They fail because they never truly believed it was possible for them. Somewhere deep inside, they've accepted the lie that wealth belongs to others, the successful, the lucky, the chosen few. And once that thought takes root, it shapes every action. They won't apply, they won't try, they won't stretch, because the identity they hold doesn't match the results they want. That's the trap. So here's what I had to learn. Wealth doesn't begin in your bank account. It begins in your belief system. You will never earn consistently beyond the identity you hold of yourself. If you believe you're only worth surviving, you'll structure your days to survive. But if you believe you're meant to thrive, you'll start making decisions that reflect that belief. It starts small sometimes with a sentence. Years ago, I was broke. I mean, pockets empty, debts overdue, broke. But someone wiser than me gave me a phrase. I am building wealth. I didn't feel wealthy, but I started saying it every morning. I wrote it on the mirror. I said it on the way to work. At first it felt silly, but then something shifted. I started carrying myself differently. I started asking different questions. I stopped making poor decisions with money because suddenly those choices didn't match who I said I was. Slowly the belief became behavior, and behavior changed my results. That's the strategy. You've got to change your identity before your income will follow. Start speaking new words over your life. I am disciplined with money. I attract opportunities. I am building wealth. Not one-time declarations, daily affirmations. Speak them with certainty, even when your reality hasn't caught up yet. Because belief is not a feeling, it's a practice. And to cement that belief, surround yourself with evidence. Read biographies of people who started from worse than where you are. Learn their habits. Study their decisions. Let their stories become bricks that build your belief. When you see what's possible for others, you start to believe it's possible for you. Belief is built, not born. Build it until it becomes your foundation. So here we are, at the edge of decision, a moment where you choose to stay the same or begin the quiet, determined journey of change. Not massive leaps overnight, but small, steady steps taken daily. Because wealth is not built in a rush, it is carved into reality through consistency, clarity, and courage. If there's one truth I've learned, it's this. Your mindset is either building your wealth or quietly destroying it. And the beautiful thing, you can change it. You can rewire how you think, speak, and act around money. You can shift from surviving to thriving, but it all starts with intention. That means sitting down, writing your goals, declaring your new identity, and committing to the disciplines that support it. Don't wait for motivation. It's overrated. What you need is movement. Movement creates clarity. Start reading. Start saving. Start saying no to what no longer fits your future. Cut the excuses, drop the blame, and take responsibility like your life depends on it, because it does. Here's your call to action. Pick one habit, just one. Maybe it's writing down your financial goals. Maybe it's saving $5 a day. Maybe it's reading 10 pages from a wealth-building book tonight. Start where you are, but start. Because if not now, when? Remember, every rich life was once a poor decision away from never starting. But those who build wealth are the ones who begin anyway. So today, begin anyway. Make the shift from hoping to planning, from spending to investing, from wishing to building. The future doesn't belong to the lucky, it belongs to the intentional. Let's go build it.